Hi everybody, this is part 2 of your lesson for question 4, paper 1, AO4. How successfully does the writer achieve tension in the text? So if we look at this question, we can see that I've down the left hand side, I've done the frame. So let's work in the frame. So you can use this answer to build on your ideas that you've got already. So we know that we're looking for tension, okay? And we've, in the beginning of the extract, the examiners have given you the scenario of what's going on, okay? So they're giving you the event. So we know that we're looking for tension, and we know that the narrator has murdered someone and hidden the body under the floor. It's a very tense situation to explore. So therefore, we're looking for tension about the murder and the body under the floor. So we should be looking for those things, attitudes, and emotions attached to them throughout the text. So if we look at the first paragraph, now this is not the only way to answer it. I'm just going to give you my engagement with it. So if we go down the right hand side, if we look at the first paragraph, in the first paragraph we find the writer, the narrator, I beg your pardon, we find the narrator is discussing the fact that he's put the body under the floor, all right? And we also see the narrator's attitude to the death. And this is what I've asked. What is the narrator's attitude towards the death? And where do we find that attitude? Well, in the first 2 sentences, we find the narrator just telling us where the bodies are. But then we see the narrator's attitudes here. I then replace the boards so cleverly and so cunningly that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. So here, the narrator shows their attitude towards the death, which is one where he doesn't care. And he doesn't care in as much as he says that he thinks he's covered it so cleverly and cunningly that not even the dead person's eye could detect anything wrong. So this shows us an attitude of somebody who feels that they're better than somebody else. And also somebody that wants to get away with something. And all those different things convince us that this is a murderer. And it also convinces us that this is a frightening situation to be in, because we observe him saying to us, well, I've been very clever and cunning, that I've been able to, put a body under the floor and nothing's wrong. So we're convinced by his actions, by what the writer tells us. So let's have a look at how that attitude is then developed throughout the rest of the text. In paragraphs 2 and 3, the writer introduces the concept of the police. So this is an idea, right? So in the beginning there we have an event, and now we have an idea, and the idea of the murderer meeting the police. Now, how does this convince us of tension? How is tension successfully shown? Well, it's shown through the interaction between the narrator and the police. And it talks about his attitude towards them. And if we see, I smiled, for what had I to fear? And he welcomes them into the house, and he's kind of convincing towards them. He's not concerned about them at all. And so we can look at what emotions does he show regarding the police, okay? Now, if we carry this through, this attitude of death, the relationship between him and the police and how he feels about them. And then if we move through to paragraphs 4 and 5, there is a slight change in events. So he moves from being very confident, I took up the planks, I replaced the boards cleverly, I opened the door with a light heart, I smiled, for what did I have to fear? And then he says the officers were satisfied and that his manner has convinced them, and he was singularly at ease. But then we get this ringing in his ears, and the ringing kind of makes us as disturbed as he is. We feel his sense of kind of unease. And then he starts to grow pale, and his voice starts to heighten, and he gasps for breath, and that so his emotions are changing. So his attitude to the death changes throughout the text, and it starts from being very confident about it to being convincing and kind of light-hearted in himself with the police, but then something unnerves him. So we see his breaking down throughout the text, and we see the breakdown in the final paragraph. And so when I ask him these last two questions, how would you describe his state of mind? And what does the final paragraph reveal? What you should be looking at here is how would you describe his state of mind is that how is it changing? And in what ways is it changing? And what causes it to change? Well, the ringing in his head causes it to change. And then in the final paragraph, he's losing control completely. So these events, the event of the body being buried under the floor and him feeling, while the police aren't there, that nobody is going to find out about it, then he's confronted with the police. But the longer they're there, the more unnerving it is. And that in itself is an event and a scenario that convinces us that this is a tense situation, because obviously somebody under the pressure of the police being there would feel the things that he did. So, and then you can look for, I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues. So the writer is showing us quite convincingly that the narrator feels confident. And because the narrator is confident in dealing with the police, we're convinced of the tension because we're waiting for the police to find out at any moment. And if we move to the final paragraph, the final paragraph, you see where I gasp for breath. From here onwards, I paced the floor. We're starting to see him breaking down. I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung to the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards. So there we see the emotional breakdown, and this is another form of tension. So we're observing the narrator going through these different emotions associated with the murder, but we also see the impact of that murder on him. And that's what makes it successful, looking at those different steps and where he ends up at the very end, where he said, I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now again, hark, louder, louder, louder. He can't bear the sound of the bells in his ears, and he just can't bear the police being there anymore. So you need to be exploring what scenario the writer has set up and what emotions or situations the writer is taking us in with regard to something in particular. And in this instance, it's the narrator's attitude towards the murder that he's committed whilst in the presence of the police. Right, I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope that that's helped you build on your answer. Okay, see you soon.